All right, so week 5 in CIT 85, and this week we do two major CSS code alongs. So this week, no group work, only code alongs, but starting next week, and that's part of why I have this screen up, is just to go over the concept of the project. So the project for this course counts for 40% of your grade, okay? Everything else we've done accounts for 60%. So when we get to the project, we're going to have, in this case, you can see it's actually part 1, part 2, and 2 part 3s. I ended up splitting that. I should probably just call it part 4, but I didn't. But this is the progression. And in this case, we've already gotten experience with doing content pages and images. We've gotten some experience with styling. So the things you'll end up doing in the project that we haven't done in group work is layout and or grid. So you could do both. I actually, in my site, ended up doing both. And then media queries. So these last two are really the way we get to responsive design, okay? And that we can make our pages respond to the type of screen that's looking at them. It's very important. As you can imagine, people could be anything from a desktop to a mobile phone and everything in between. So being able to write code that has the ability to respond to what we call the viewport size is important. And so there's not as much coding, CSS coding here. There's a lot more here, but it's more understanding how to make those things, how to implement those concepts. Now remember, this is also a beginning class, so it's not as if you're going to walk away with an expertise. I'll tell you that Flexbox and grid and media queries, and really even the styling, is just something that you want to continue to build your skill on. But if I was to give you a visual, right? So here's my output from the part 1. And should look somewhat familiar because this is kind of what we did. So you're going to choose a topic. So one of my questions for you on the discussion this week will be, do you have a topic you want to use for the project? Because as I said, and you'll see it in the write-up, is it needs to be different than what you chose for week 3. Okay? And then also, if there's something that you found, and I didn't put this in the attendance, but you could say this, that you found to help you do better prompt writing in the chatbot, let us know what that is as well. So then in part 2, we move on to styling. So you can see the output of doing the styling requirements. And it's a bit what we did in step 4 and more. And then in 3, we end up doing, and you can see my progression of the way I changed my site over time, is also, and this is where it's responsive design. Okay, and you'll learn more about this, how you can make your site. And you can see how mine is responding to the different sizes here by changing my image, by changing some other things on the page. So that's what we'll do there. And then the last step will be media queries. And this is where we actually change our page layout completely based on that concept of responding to the viewport. Okay. So just coming back here, so I just want to give you that as we move into this week. Okay, it's an important part of what we're going to do because we're transitioning after this week from not doing group work to doing project work that you then submit to me. And an important part of this project work will be your documentation of the CSS you write. And you saw this in week 4, but you're going to see this as we move through the project because I get the world that we live in. It's easy to find stuff out there, but you really should be writing CSS on your own. And then you can use the chatbots to help you understand or maybe, write a description, but really you need to be writing those on your own because that's how you learn. So, FYI, okay? All right, so I just wanted to talk about that. And then also that got me thinking about the end of the semester. So I wanted to just make, you aware now, we're in week 5. If I roll forward here, right, so here we are, we're actually in week 4. I'm releasing week 5. And this is what I was talking about. We'll start doing project work here. We'll do project work here. So that'll end April. And then in May, we'll do some more project work. This will be our last code along. And then we'll do 2 days of project work. and then you'll have an attendance, and the final project for you'll be sharing out to everybody in the class in addition to the final step in the project will be due, and this is different, 8 o'clock on Wednesday, right, the 15th. So I wanted you to keep that in mind, because as we move towards the end of the semester, you want to make sure you're finishing in a good place, okay? And working on that the night before is probably not a good idea because, but at the same time, you get to work at whatever pace as long as you're getting the work done. The other thing I would tell you is that this is also on the 15th, the last time I will accept late work. So if you're submitting work after the due date, right, and you have past stuff you want to get caught up on, this will be the last time you can do that is 8 o'clock on the 15th. Okay? So I want you to know that, because that's an important part, right? Okay, so this is what I was talking about with the project. And do you have a topic that you think you want to use? Because I flagged you that you can't use the same one you use on 3 and 4. Now I did give a link here to writing better chat prompts. There's probably some better ones out there. But also as we move into this week, CSS memes, right? So this is kind of the classic meme for CSS. It's like trying to open up, lines, and it's like, how does it work? Can I, if I tweak this, it does this. Very common. It's kind of like you play with it, you learn, and that's where learning dev tools is really important, really, really helpful to learn dev tools so that you can tweak things without actually having to go over, change your CSS and come back. You can just kind of play and see how things are rendered differently based on that. Okay, so for this week, we have these 2 code-alongs, and for each of them you'll have, let me just roll to here, you'll have a part 1 and a part 2. So in this case, I'll have you create that folder, right? So a part 1 folder and a part 2 folder for each of them. So make sure you do that piece. And then as you're doing that, because in this CSS course with Dave, he's not like we did in the HTML where we're taking and we're building. We're generally starting over. But the thing you want to bring across so you have that in one place is that css.md file. Okay, you definitely want to bring that every time over, because then you're continuing to add as I'm having you do it in the notes. So make sure you have that folder right. Make sure you have brought over that CSS file for that. And I think that's all I have for today. I just wanted to give you that overview so you kind of see where we're going. And again, if you have a topic, reply that here. If you have some suggestions about, writing better chat prompts, do that here. If you just have questions, great time to do that here. Okay, have a great week, and I'll talk to you soon.